Our next question is a census-related question. John H. Prince Jr. from Parkchester asks, will there be an opportunity to correct what is perceived to be an undercount in 2021 before they start the redistricting process?
This is an incredible question, so thank you for asking it, Mr. Prince. We have to investigate the actual rollout and execution of the 2020 census, and there's some good news and some bad news. The bad news is that, and this should be no secret to anyone, the Trump administration worked very, very hard to make the census as difficult as possible for communities like ours. They were playing games with this citizenship question, which eventually was tossed out, but the insistence on it and the messaging around it and the intimidation around it really prompted a lot of our communities to feel that the census was not trustworthy. And as a consequence, many people did not fill out the census because they were scared that they would be attacked for their status, even though the citizenship question was able to be tossed out. Secondly, there were constant changes in administration of the census. There were transitions to digital questionnaires. Some communities were being mailed their paper censuses on a different timeline, and we also had the shortened count period, shortened to October, I believe, and that's about a month shorter than many people were anticipating. So we had a shorter timeline with a more difficult process and a lot of confusion and intimidation about what questions were going to be asked and what would happen if you didn't answer those questions. So there are absolutely plenty of concerns about how the census was administered and the potential for an undercount. That's the bad news. The good news is that we worked very, very hard to overcome a lot of those obstacles. And one thing that I think is that good news is that the city, the state, and ourselves here in our community invested overtime where the federal government did not. And we were actually able to match our 2010 census count. Julie Menon of the New York City Census Bureau reported that successful result. I can't help but wonder what our census count would have been if we didn't have those obstacles and also had that enormous investment. And so even then, even with that number being our reporting number, being able to match our reporting number in 2010, I still believe that the potential for an undercount is absolutely there, given all of those previously stated variables. And so what we are looking into is how the census was administered, whether it was administered ethically, and we are currently going to try to investigate any large scale or systemic injustices in the administration of the 2020 census. And we have to see where that investigation takes us, and we have to see where the facts lie. But there is, potential, I believe, as a member who sits on the oversight committee in the House, I believe that there may be a potential, if we find something very deep and very systemic, to see if there's any way that we can make up for those inequities. But again, we have to let these investigations bear out and see where they go.